matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. These words ring loud and clear in this building every Sunday. I remember the first time that I heard them. I remember how important, meaningful, and beautiful they were to me in that moment. Being new to San Diego and new to this church, I was on the lookout to see if you all truly live out what you say. You see, I've been asked to leave churches before because they found out a truth about me that they didn't know. The reality is that I was the exact same person that they had always known and loved. The fact that they learned that I am a gay man all of a sudden meant that I was no longer welcome to sing or play piano for worship services, and in some cases, I was no longer able to walk in the front door. These experiences were heartbreaking for me. When I first went off to college at Anderson University in Anderson, Indiana, I declared a double major in Christian ministries and church music. I knew that I was called to a life of ministry, and I was so excited to be on my way to making that call a reality. As I began to come to terms with my sexuality, I began to fear that I would never be able to work in ministry. So I changed my major 9 times. I finally settled on a Bachelor of Arts in Music with an emphasis in performance. I was just happy to finish the degree at that point, but I never felt fulfilled with that decision. I still knew that ministry was where I was meant to be. After being kicked out of these churches and losing jobs in ministry based on my sexuality, I was ready to give up on that dream and my faith altogether. My dear friend and college professor, who had walked with me during my coming out process, had a talk with me about what was going on, and she invited me to come to her church. She assured me, the choir director is gay, the organist is gay, there are guys out there in the congregation that are gay, or part of the LGBTQIA community, and that I would not be kicked out of this church based on my sexuality. In fact, she said that I would be celebrated for all that I was. So I went to church with her, and she was right. I was welcomed right away, joined the choir, and was asked to share my story with the congregation early on. I was incredibly nervous to stand up in front of a church and share about my experience as a gay man. I literally kept thinking, who's going to shoot me? I was so afraid that I would make someone angry by being honest and saying that I'm a gay Christian man. I typed up what I wanted to say. I printed it out. I nervously walked to the front microphone. I looked out at the hundreds of people sitting in the pews. I was sweating and shaking like a leaf. I was so nervous that those in the room could hear my paper rattling through the microphone. I was timid as I began. I broke all the rules of public speaking. I kept my head down. I read without looking at my audience, and I was just praying that it would be over quickly. I gained strength and confidence as I began to read further into my story. I talked of my gratitude of finding a church that welcomed me and accepted me for exactly who I am. I finished my story and I looked up fearful of what I would find. Instead of the rejection that had become so eerily familiar, I saw tears streaming down the faces of most every person in the room. I heard thunderous applause, and I felt the first twinge of healing within my soul. As the service let out, hundreds of people stopped to thank me. Some shared their own stories of hurt from the church. Some shared how that church that we were standing in had saved their lives. I continued to receive phone calls and cards and emails thanking me for being brave enough to share my story. I knew that I had finally found a place where I was loved, respected, wanted, and celebrated. The oldest lady in the choir came up to me and said, "If you ever need a friend to be with you in a safe place, I'll meet you at Talbot Street, which is a local gay bar in Indianapolis, for a cocktail." I knew I had found my home from the time. I was, and I am, so grateful for that place. That church was a United Methodist church in downtown Indianapolis, and they have since become a reconciling congregation, which is the United Methodist equivalent to an open and affirming church. This place allowed me to renew my passion for ministry, grow my skill sets, and add new ones, and live out my calling. I worked through a lot of healing in that place, and I was able to get myself to a place where I was able to take on a bigger role in ministry at a Disciples of Christ church in a small town in Shelbyville, Indiana. I was nervous to switch to a church in such a small town, but I was promised again that I would be celebrated, and I am so grateful for those places who took me in. I took one final job in Indianapolis at a church, at a Presbyterian church. I was called to be the band leader at a new contemporary service they were starting there. I was again loved, celebrated, and I grew immensely in my leadership skills. At this church, I was fortunate enough to lead some of the top musicians in Indianapolis, and I learned so much about myself and about music from their brilliant minds. I also found family in these people. Again, more love and acceptance and celebration of who I am and the gifts that I have been given. I share all of this with you to help you understand a portion of my journey to finding this place. Had I not been invited to church with my college professor, I believe that I would have given up on the church and my faith completely. I am so grateful to her for her welcoming me into a place where she knew that I would be safe. I tell her of my gratitude often, and I still speak with her and pray with her when advice or guidance is desired. In October of 2015, I visited San Diego for the very first time with a friend. We were standing at Seal Beach in La Jolla Cove, and he said to me, "You know, you're always a pretty happy guy, but you really seem at peace here. I really think you should consider what that means." I laughed a bit and I said, "Well, I always feel so close to God when I'm in nature." That was the extent of that conversation, but it lingered with me for months afterward. You see, I felt that God was calling me out of Indianapolis, but I had no clue where I was to go. So I prayed, and I asked my parents to join me in praying, and we prayed fervently for 3 years. As I flew back to Indianapolis after my trip here, it no longer felt like home, and I felt that I had finally received my answer. I called my dad and I asked if I could come down to their place and talk to them about something. He said, "Of course, we'll be home at this time, so come on by." So I walked in, nervous to tell them what I was thinking, and I said, "I came to talk to you guys about something important." Dad ventured, "Yes, we know. You're moving to California." I was in shock that they knew. I looked at him with a puzzled expression on my face and I said, "How did you know?" And he said, "We knew from the very first picture that you posted while you were out there that you had found your home." I was blown away and I felt that I had received the confirmation that I was doing the right thing. So I immediately got busy planning this big move. My family has lived in Indiana for generations. The people in my family who had left Indiana had left to serve in some branch of the military. And then they returned after their service ended. It was a big shift for me to think of leaving my large, wonderful family behind to move across the country. I set a date in July of 2016. I had to finish out my lease in Indianapolis, and that would allow me the time to do so. I started searching every site that I could find for jobs. I posted on Facebook asking if anyone knew of any sites that specifically listed ministry jobs or helped one to find churches that might be gay-friendly. I was prompted to look at gaychurch.org. I looked it up and it listed all of the churches that were open and affirming, or some other equivalent in San Diego. I got busy. I sent an email with my resume to every single church on that list. I explained that I was moving from Indianapolis to San Diego and I was looking for a job in music ministry. I heard back from several churches that said that they were not hiring but would keep my resume on file. I heard from a few churches saying that they had just filled a position. And then I received an email from a man named Ray Newton. For those of you that don't know, Ray is a member of this church. He said that the church he was with was looking for a new director of music and that they really liked my website. He wanted to know if I would come in for an interview. I said, "Absolutely, but I don't get to town until July 16th. Will that be a problem?" He said they had hoped for sooner, but they were interested enough to wait. So I landed in San Diego on July 16th, and I interviewed here on July 17th. I was so nervous. I was new to town, and I only knew 2 people in the entire city. I put on my suit, and I walked in with my game face on. The interview went well, and I was verbally offered the position on the spot. They said that the written offer would come shortly after. I agreed to that contract and began my work here on August 1st, 2016. In the past 2+ years, I have learned that you absolutely live out the words that I quoted in the beginning. You have embraced me with open arms. You have loved me, not in spite of who I am, but because of who I am. You have allowed me to continue to grow my ministry and as a person. You have welcomed my friends from the LGBTQIA+ community with open arms, lots of hugs, delicious food, and a spirit of acceptance that is beautiful to watch and experience. I do not have to worry about asking anyone I know to come here. You know why? It is because I know that you all will treat each person with the dignity, respect, kindness, and love that each person deserves to experience. So what is the beauty of that for you? Why does it matter that we are an open and affirming congregation? Let me tell you what I think it is. I think that we have been richly blessed by sharing in a diverse community. We have learned new viewpoints and heard people's stories, and we have been changed. I believe that our music has been enhanced in incredible ways by the gifts of our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQIA+ community. I believe that life is more beautiful and fun when we welcome our brothers and sisters from this community into our midst. I know that I've grown to be a richer person through the friends I've made with these wonderful men from the San Diego Gay Men's Chorus. And I know how much they have enhanced my lives, as well as the many of the lives of you in here. And talk about sharing music to enhance worship. They knocked it out of the park today, am I right? We have members from this community who serve on our boards, offer unique insight and perspective, work hard around our grounds, and teach us what it means to bounce back after being hurt. We are a resilient community, and we are a loving community. We have been pushed aside and spoken ill of, and yet we come back with love and acceptance and grace. You see, I believe that God gave us the gift of diversity so that we can experience many assets of Him and her. We are all made in the image of God. How neat is that? How wonderful to think that each of us carries that spark of creation in our own lives. To know that what I see in you is a part of God, and what you see of me is a part of God, is a beautiful thing. I don't believe that we will ever fully understand God on this side of things. However, I do believe that when we take the time to get to know one another, learn from each other's stories and experiences, and choose to boldly say, you are welcome here, we learn about God in each moment and through each interaction with one another. Being open and affirming means that those looking for a place to worship can know that it is truly safe to walk through these doors without fear of judgment, chastisement, or being asked to leave. It means that they can walk through our doors with their heads held high, proud of who they are, and experience God's love and acceptance. This is so important, my friends. To truly love, to welcome all. Love always protects. It always trusts. It always hopes. And it always perseveres. May we continue to be a shining example of that love.